Everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. You're probably watching this, if you're watching it when it's out, in 2026, but this is kind of a 2025 year ender in some ways because I'm talking with someone who has worked on, I believe, three books, a screenplay, and is quite the survivor from the past year, and that is author Dr. Richard A. Olson, or Dr. Batman. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming back.
Um, Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here and a privilege to be alive to have this Christmas time and season. So we're ready to rock.
Absolutely, absolutely. I suppose we should start with the last thing I mentioned there, which is that you had a near-death experience last year, and you're currently working on a memoir about that and exploring what that was like. It sounds like the manuscript starts with three blank pages that you're working to fill.
January 16th this year, somebody had a heart attack and hit me head on at 75 miles an hour. I was life flighted to a major, wonderful hospital trauma center, and I was only in the hospital for 39 days. Wow.
Only
And
39.
it took me 8 months to start walking. So I'm just glad to be alive this Christmas. Um, as far as the memoir goes, and that's a nice word, I wasn't sure what to call it. It's called Why More Time? And it's simple. Why did God give me more time? For several times they thought I was dead. My diaphragm was ruptured, so just as being a doctor, like how'd they keep me, breathing? Multiple major surgeries, which I won't bore you guys with, haha. An engine crushed my lower body. We're talking dozens and dozens and dozens of fractures and titanium this. So maybe I'd be a little bit like Iron Man, it's all that titanium or something like that.
Mhm.
So the challenge is, how do you write something you don't know or remember? Because I don't remember 3 days of my life. I don't even remember the day of the accident. Like nothing. I don't remember waking up. I guess I was taking my son from basketball practice to get a haircut. Don't know that. So the fun part is I've written outlines for chapters as my life's happened this month. Chapter on this, chapter on that, and some were incredibly exciting. Like I visit the surgeon. He comes in the room. There's a tornado warning, so he whisked me to the X-ray room for 4 hours during a tornado.
Wow.
But how did it start, and what don't I remember? So the first few chapters have literally taken me a couple months, and I got to interview some people. Wild, wild stories. One gal actually recognized my son from Latchkey, standing outside my wrecked vehicle and pulled over and stopped till the ambulance and the helicopters showed up. So, like, wow, we can call her an angel. So, through interviewing my wife and my friends, I finally made the first two chapters. Yay. And the third chapter is kind of a mental chapter because my brain's a recorder like yours, and I didn't remember to record stuff. So I think once at chapter four, the book would be kind of fun, different experiences, different learning experiences, visits, all kinds of wild stuff. So the book could be a year out, but I guess my story's not over. I'm still learning to walk. I'm still recovering. The doctor said 2 years to do stuff, and at 10 weeks at least I stood up, which was a nurse was like, you can't do that. Well, I couldn't walk, but years of martial art training and different things have taught me balance. So at least I stood up. So I guess the funny part is you can say I stood up for myself.
Very true. That's a chapter title in itself, right?
There's chapters like The Doctor I Never Met. I mean, there's just all kinds of wild chapters. I shouldn't say a plot spoiler, but I will. My wife turned 50 years old when I was in the hospital. So how do you plan a 50-year-old birthday party for your wife? I was pretty sneaky. Somebody bought roses, somebody bought this. So I did stuff like that. So we're glad to be alive, glad to hear for Christmas. Everybody appreciate every holiday you have because it may be your last.
Absolutely. Yeah, the gift of life is part of what I'm thinking about as you're talking about this, and also the gift of writing, because I know that there's a research out from people like Elizabeth Dutro and a good friend of mine, Rochelle Savitz, about literacy and trauma and how writing through these experiences, it kind of gives you a way to process that I don't think everybody has or takes advantage of. So, just curious about that process of writing along with and writing back through the things that have happened.
Well, that itself was a challenge because I broke two bones in my right wrist, and I think they did a minor surgery from the scar. So I couldn't even write for the first 2 months. I couldn't even close my hand. It took me like 9 months to close my hand. But about the 10th week, I started writing a little bit in the hospital, and we'll see when I proof my notes how well my chapters were. But I can use my hand and I can write pretty good now, but that has kept my sanity. You watch TV 10 hours a day, you do what, blah, blah, blah. So we write like it's a real job, and I try to actually work 6, 7, 8 hours a day. So the results are I've published 3 books this year. Yay.
Hmm.
Almost
Hmm.
finished another one and wrote a screenplay of an existing book, which is Nick Stihl. Nick Stihl is a 1930s private investigator in the wonderful Peoria, Illinois. Peoria was the original Sin City, they called it. It was whiskey capital of the world. Half the nation's whiskey was made here before Prohibition.
Hmm.
The infamous Shelton gang ruled the roost, so to speak. So I did finish my third Nick Stihl book, and I'm putting Peoria in on purpose. It's Peoria in the Hollywood Nights, and it's my first full-length Nick Stihl novel.
You've also worked in young adult in the past years. What was it that drew you to the young adult audience?
Well, I love kids. My wife calls me a kid magnet. So I'm a grandpa and a dad and an uncle. I'll go to a hockey game in the third period. 10 kids are around me. It's just the way things always are. So I have to draw on the youth, and they are our future. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
future of our country, the future of our world. So my um, story, Scott Lunn, who stars as a border agent, became a private consultant, which is the newest book. It's his nephew and niece, Zach and Zoe, 15, 12-year-old type age. And they go on adventures usually in national parks, Lunn Family Mysteries. So that book came out with 210-page kind of short novels, which my kids created. They created the stories, and I put it to words. And just at Christmas, my grandson Anakin said, I want a book. So maybe we could test drive that. The Mysterious Lodge is the working title. And they go to visit Grandpa, and the next morning they wake up and Grandpa is gone. They're stuck alone in the lodge. And that would have to be probably pretty scary for a kid to wake up one morning in a lodge in the woods and like, there's no adults. So they have to figure out who kidnapped, who took Grandpa. I'm very, very excited to write that. And I want to test drive the audience, but I'm actually thinking of putting a real Saskatchewan or Bigfoot in it.
Oh, nice, nice. Some
Every
cryptid.
Everything I write is actually plausible and makes sense. No fantasy, no dragons, no this. So maybe there's a Bigfoot, but that might draw attention to other kids. You don't have Bigfoot in a story. Like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
Bigfoot is could be part of the story. Really, I'm really jacked up to write that one. I'm starting the outline by chapter right now. So that's my young adult um soliloquy or story for you guys and you viewers.
I would contend that a Bigfoot or Sasquatch is plausible. Plausible. It's a possibility. I'm open to it anyway. So that sounds really interesting, really fascinating, and young adult me would totally grab that book.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, they're talking about grabbing is the word I wanted. Just grab your attention. Like, there's a Bigfoot, like how does, and I don't know how he plays in yet, but I'll figure it out. We'll have some fun with that.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember even Harry and the Hendersons I loved as a kid. and anything X-Files, paranormal, I was scared of it, but at the same time, I was also fascinated by it.
The story will take place in Vancouver, Canada. So
Nice, nice.
this in the Saskatchewan province, and that's what got me thinking. Wait a minute.
Mhm, mhm.
So readers, young and old, will have fun for everybody.
Now, back to Nick Still for just a little bit. You said that you were working on a screenplay and that there's some Hollywood travel in mind as well for the Nick Still adventure. So, what was it like to tackle the screenplay format?
Well, to retrograde it a little bit, the second Nick Stihl book, the first one's called A Man of Steel, kind of like Superman, but it's spelled like the German saw. So the second one's called Peoria Nights, short story, a very rough Nazi caterpillar secret formula story, and then a party story in a castle, which really does exist in Peoria, the Soldiers from Castle. So this is an effort a long time. The owner of the castle has become a friend and reader of mine, Dr. Carl Soderstrom, and we kind of talked about it. So I tried hiring a director, screenplay writer, and half a year later, he's too busy. So he refers me to somebody, and 6 weeks later, the poor guy's wife has cancer. So a year's gone by, and I thought, if I don't write it, nobody will. So every Saturday for literally this whole year, I worked on this screenplay, and I just finished it 2 weeks ago. And I kind of combined all the stories into a novel. So there is kind of a Nazi fifth columnist novel with a incredible Halloween party at this castle. And I hit the mark. You're supposed to have screenplays 110, 120 pages, and I came in at 115, so I was very pleased. So we'll get that copyrighted next month and start working on some ideas and filming. And I have a buddy who's like 100 antique cars,
Oh, nice.
and he has a Packard 8 blue car that my hero drives just coincidentally. So I've got the car, and we got the screenplay. And then the third Nick Stihl book is my first novel, Peoria and the Hollywood Nights. And it was just a blast. I thought, your girlfriend, what if your girlfriend moves away because a famous actress and gets in trouble? And that's what happens. High school girlfriend becomes a famous Hollywood actress, and she gets accused of murder. So he flies out to Hollywood, Beverly Hills in 1938 to see if she's guilty or innocent. And that ended up being a novel, and that was just a blast to write. I don't know if you young people would know, who the Three Stooges are, who Cary Grant
Mhm.
is, Groucho Marx. So it was just a playground, and it ended up being a very good novel. My editor said it might be the best book I wrote yet. So, Peoria and the Hollywood Nights is my new Nick Steele book released literally 3, 4 weeks ago.
So you were talking about the Three Stooges. You were talking about some of these stars of stage and screen, and I will interject that the coolest kids should know who those people are. The coolest of kids. Uh, what was the sort of the film inspiration, the playlist, if you were, that would kind of inspire this Nick Still adventure? Any particular celebrities, film titles, or genres that you would go to and recommend as viewing?
Well, I picked 38. Nick Steele kind of ages a little. His first story is around 35, and he gets a car, and so I'm slowly aging, but I'm trying to keep him out of World War II right now.
Hmm, hmm.
So Beverly Hills was just incredible back then, and I'd like to digress into Beverly Hills jail, and I think I will. This is outrageous even today, but if you went to jail in Beverly Hills, you could pay extra money and get a private room and amenities and all kinds of stuff. You can still do that until the
Yeah.
first arraignment. You could actually pay extra money for a private facility. So when he meets his actor's ex-girlfriend, she's having her nails done, she's doing this in her jail cell. So that was a lot of fun. I'm a big Thin Man series fan with William Paul Myrna Loy. So the character goes into the Hollywood set studio kind of exploring, and they think he's an extra. So they yank him off. They have him be the butler for those two actors in a couple scenes, which is just a riot. I didn't really pick specific movies though. I kind of wanted to save for that, so I went more for people like Cary Grant might be in there, Randall Scott might be in there. He actually is going through one studio and he opens the door and there's the Three Stooges acting out a scene. So I kind of picked a plethora of actors that he could interact with, and he even gets invited to a Hollywood party that Groucho Marx was hosting. So it's more imaginary actors interacting with Nick Stihl than there's the real actors that he would intersperse and interact with. So it's kind of like a Candyland, and I hope some of the young people say, "Hey, who was that?" And maybe they might watch a movie, with Cary Grant in it or something like that, and stir interest. 38 was kind of the end of the Depression, so this was a golden era, and people would go to their theaters, they just escape, to be in these movies themselves in real life. So it was quite a playground, and I almost hate to say it, but he goes out and meets her, and then she gets accused of a second murder.
Mhm.
So, there's an old saying, you double the trouble on the hero. So I double and triple the trouble on the hero. And my editor loved the part, I had a big courtroom scene. You're all out of order. Maybe not quite that. But the courtroom scene was just outrageous, and I really can't give any plot spoilers on that at all. But there's a huge courtroom scene at the end, and then my editor said she thought it's one of the best scenes she's ever read. I was like, okay. So eat and enjoy all the candy and have lots of fun with Fury and the Hollywood Nights.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. 1938, 1939, those are such really vibrant years for pulps, for film, for comics. There was so much happening there, and I consider Nick Steele uh, new pulp in many ways. I consider you a new pulp writer, and that is a huge compliment for someone who loves the genre of pulps. Curious about that research process of digging into the time period. You mentioned the court scene. I know that requires a lot of research and thinking through how those things play out. So I imagine you spent some time on that.
Well, absolutely. And some of that time is just, I'm going to use the word being a sponge. I think I watched my first Humphrey Bogart movie when I was 12 years old, and I just loved it. So
Mhm,
through a
mhm.
lifetime of watching movies, you kind of can pick and choose actors and different things. But the writing process, like the tip of an iceberg, the reader just reads that little bit and all the research the author did to
Yeah,
go, behind that. So, how's the district attorney act, and how's the judge going to act, and how's the actress's lawyer going to act and interact. So I try to make everything as authentic as possible. I guess through 38 years of being a doctor and depositions, my wife calls me sometimes an amateur lawyer, and I had the jokes to back it up.
lovely, lovely.
Yeah, so the book's laced with all kinds of fun jokes, and there's even a joke about a seance guy. I almost hate to give some of the jokes away.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
if let's see, I'm trying to think of clean lawyer jokes. I guess that's the other challenge too. Like how many lawyers it take to change a light bulb. Depends on how many lawyers you can afford.
Hmm, hmm.
And the difference in a good and bad lawyer. A bad lawyer will settle your case in a year, and a good lawyer will take years to settle your case.
True. Nice.
So,
You have to have the humor to process reality, and I'm sure that was part of your healing process as well.
yeah, you got to have humor, and as one thing is just to not be depressed. And I think gratitude's a good word too. To have
Hmm.
gratitude for everything, because there's always something bad going on. I mean,
Yeah.
just always. So, to have a cheerful heart and have gratitude, I think is lessons for anybody young and old. Because some people get older, they get meaner, they get more senile, they get more depressed, and it's a vicious cycle. almost like a downward snowball, you know. So just always try to say positive things and be positive and be of good cheer for the new year. Haha.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for the rhyme as well. We love the poetic voice. I'm curious, going back to Nick Steele for just a moment in film, if you were putting a casting call out, if you were doing a Nick Steele film, is there a particular type of character that you would be looking for, or anywhere from the pantheon of actors that have been? We've talked a lot about Cary Grant. Any actors that you feel like would carry the role well?
Well, if they were alive, Robert Taylor, George Montgomery, I think a couple of those people would just been the most fantastic Nick Still. And people are like, well, who are they? Um, George Montgomery actually, not Robert, there's a Robert and a George. George actually did a Philip Marlowe movie,
Ah, nice. Yeah.
you know, just as an example. Of course, Humphrey Bogart, you know, did Sam Spade, and he was in Philip Marlowe too. I've actually not given any preconceived ideas to a modern actor to take over the role because I don't want to put Nick into some kind of box or make him like a modern actor. So when the casting does happen, that's really not my job.
Yeah.
You know, the director,
Yeah.
producers, I'm gonna let them pick who they want and let it go.
Yeah.
Some authors are horrible when movies are made. You know, they fight and argue over this and this and then they ruin it for future movies. So that's not my job. I write the screenplay, I don't direct it, you know. So I'm actually open-minded. Maybe I'm kind of curious, like who will get this role? And is it a little somebody, or maybe they drag in somebody like Liam Neeson because he did the last Philip Marlowe movie.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just not my job.
Yeah.
You know,
That
I,
makes
I did
total sense. Makes
I did my
sense.
job, and I can be consultant on the script and things, but sometimes you just gotta let it go and try smiling about it.
Yeah. Yeah. True enough. True enough. Where are you headed for 2026? Do you have a writing goal in mind? Are you going to try to top last year in some way? Which I'm not sure that you can with the story that you had from last year, but what are your goals now?
The gauntlet has been thrown. Thank you. I actually call them vision goals. This is my first book was published 3 years ago this month, and I'm revising it. It's the first Nick Steele book, so I just sent off a revised edition to kind of, you know, because I've improved in 3 years. Uh, so I want to have one or two young adult books next year. The other story's pretty wild too, but we'll not let the reader on that one. I actually almost have the next Nick Steele book totally done, and it's got a huge Christmas theme. In fact, I
Nice.
released the short story as an ebook for Christmas, Don't Steal Christmas. And then there's his first case, which is a real humdinger, and then a huge Christmas story. So I've already got most of the next Nick Steele, but I'm going to wait till October or November to release it. And breaking new ground, I have a brand new series. It's going to be called Carol and Nash. And the hero is Ron Carroll, a military captain in the Quad Cities, Davenport, Iowa, Rock Island, Illinois. And the female is Nancy Nash, and she's a Rock Island police detective. And I hope this could even be a TV series like Cagney and Lacey or Starsky and Hutch or something like that. So that's really exciting. I'm down the last 4 or 5 chapters of that book, and it's a totally different Rick Olson writing that book. It's way different. It's probably even a little more female oriented, and she has a bag full of problems. She's divorced, and her new boyfriend wants to marry her. She want to do that, so she's got a whole bag full of baggage, so to speak. And there's a place called Arsenal Island on the Mississippi River. Have you ever heard of that?
I don't believe so. Don't believe so.
It is the
Arsenal
most
Island.
It's well, I grew up in the Quad Cities. I actually lived on Campbell's Island for the Battle of 1812. And these islands are huge. The river just fans out. My island had 100 houses and a church and a marina, so that's not a little
Wow.
island. And Arso Island is the largest munitions manufacturer in the United States. Rock Island Armory, Rock Island Guns. They even do it's all military, but it's a huge island, and it was the most feared Civil War camp. You got set there, and there was rapids back then for locking dams, so you were trapped. And they give you food once a week, and the weak prisoners would die, and the strong would take the food. So Arso Island is just a huge plethora of things to write about. It's basically a cybersecurity spy story, and then I kind of throw in a lot of other stuff. But it's gonna be a whole new series in a vein I've never in before. I almost hate to say it, but it might be a little bit of Nora Roberts in a way, with the more emphasis because she has some female police series too, female police detectives and stuff. So I'm super excited for that to be a whole new series. So we'll have 1 to 2 young adult books. We'll have a new Nick Stihl book, and then we'll have it's called Arsenal of Death. So that's 4 books right there are already on the pipeline. So uh, I guess I can't ever die. I'm too busy.
That is a good prognosis. I love that, and it sounds like the shelf is filling up rather rapidly.
6 books and 6 short stories in 3 years already.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was being a full-time doctor for 2 of those years. So we'll keep at it. And I was talking to a teenage nephew the other day, and things are, huge. So I asked
Hmm.
him if you know how to eat an elephant, and I bet you know how to eat an elephant, don't you?
One bite at a time, always.
That's right. So, if you write 2 or 3 pages a day, that's 700 pages a year. Or you can
Hmm.
say, I can't write a 400-page book, but just one bite at a time. And that's good advice for anybody out there listening. Just take one bite at a time and see what you can do in 6 to 12 months. You'll be amazed. But don't shut down and be overwhelmed. Don't freak out. It's just too much. So we have to eat one bite at a time. And you know why the 2 elephants couldn't go swimming, don't you?
I know the answer to this joke, and I've used it in my classroom, but you are welcome to deliver the punchline.
It's my daughter's favorite joke. I say, how do you eat an elephant? Why couldn't the 2 elephants go swimming? She goes, because they only had one pair of trunks.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. I do borrow the jokes and share them with my students, so I hope that's okay.
Well, I'm sure they love you for that too, because humor a bloody humor makes everything go down, right?
I think so. I think it makes a better experience for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. Have we missed anything in the talk through of your work that you'd like to mention, or anything else? I don't want to leave anything untouched that you'd like to share for now.
Well, we might be here a long time, but I think the important things have been mentioned. And again, this interview could be, one bite at a time.
True,
And
true. Very
we've
true.
covered a lot of ground right now, and maybe we should have a pop quiz. How many books is Dr. Olson writing or will write or whatever. But the thing is to, entertain people, to engage them,